Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Soldathemmet in Gotland for this morning session about mental health as national security. My name is Jonas Lundberg, CEO of Lumel Associates, who are hosting this session together with Soldathemmet and the organization Repower. With us on stage today, we have four distinguished panelists. To the left of me here, we have a combat medic from Ukraine, codenamed Prince. Correct. We have Elin Jönsson from SVT, who's a correspondent to Ukraine, among other things. We have Dr. North from Shiftwave, a corporation working with various things connected to mental health in crisis, and you will hear more about that. And also Kateryna Serdiuk from Repower, the organization that are helping combat medics to receive rehabilitation and mental health support after being in the frontline. So our discussion today will be focused on mental health as national security, on how mental health can be important both in crisis and in wartime, and how the social cohesion and social preparedness and mental health can be an important contributing factor to the strength of a society. So that's what we're going to discuss today, but let us start with having a perspective from real life in Ukraine. So Prince, we talked a bit about this before, and you were not a full-time soldier before the war. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did before the war?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I would say that I would never imagine me being in army. That was even a joke in my family because my mother wanted me to go to a military academy or to become a doctor. And when I was smaller and I was in school, I told her, like, never, I will be in that dirt, I will never go to the army, I will never work with blood, I will never work to never become a doctor. And then life make a interesting joke, making me a combat medic. Both, both things my mother wanted. But that's the reality of war. People need to change, people need to adapt, people need to sacrifice some personal wishes, personal dreams to protect what they love. Before the war, I was actually doing a translator job in Ukraine, translating from English to Ukrainian, also sometimes Norwegian. But it was far away from what I do now. So that's a reality of war, when you need to choose and adapt.
And how prepared were you sort of mentally before the war, going to war and seeing the things that you have?
I cannot say that you could prepare for such a thing. Like everyone in Ukraine was expecting something to happen, expecting something bad to happen, but probably no one in Ukraine could imagine the scale of the violence and horrible things we will experience, because we still consider Russians to be civilized human beings, and then we discovered that they were far away from that. And you cannot prepare mentally, but this is one important thing. Like we are talking about mental health as a national security thing. I would say that mental health is really connected to morale, and morale is something that makes an army, because without morale, it's just a gathering of different people with different beliefs who don't know what they're doing. But if they have morale, then that is an army that's fighting for something they believe in, and that's important.
Thank you. And now we'll maybe switch to both Swedish, English, and Ukrainian. Elin, you warned me before that you think in a lot of different languages. But you spend a lot of time now in Ukraine talking to people both in the army but also in Kiev and other places, civilians. What's your view on how the war has affected the mental health of the people that you have met?
Yeah, maybe could start with the moral also, because the moral is not only in the army, it's also in the whole society, and that the whole society came together in this moral question. And when I talk to people, I always meet this positive energy and a lot of humor and a lot of warmth. People always, like, if it's very different from Sweden, but when you meet people in Ukraine, they usually hug you and when saying hello the first time, not shaking your hands. And people really want to be this, to share this positive energy with you and show their morals. But when you start to talk, and of course people have been through so much traumas, and when you start to talk and go deeper into the topics and really ask what they have been through, of course this surface often cracks, and there are a lot of feelings and traumas coming out. And so it's having both this very strong society with a lot of humor and positive energy, but also a lot of traumas that of course have to be dealt with. And I think Ukrainians do it very well because they are very open and they're used to talk about their feelings. And that was a surprise to me when I started to work in Ukraine, that people were so ready to talk with each other and also with us journalists about what they're going through.
And do you see, is Sweden prepared to talk about their mental health and give each other hugs?
No, not that. I think people in Sweden are still trying to get ready in a very physical way. I mean, they're trying to buy toilet papers or cans and teas and store water and that kind of. They don't understand how important it is to share with each other. Because what I see in Ukraine, when I come to like cities that have been occupied and I meet with people, they have also been collecting food and doing this, but they don't put them in their own home. They don't put in their own flat and just eating themselves. They share everything. If they have a house of several floors, they put everything in the staircase. They have the woods there, the food, the water, so then all of them can share. And they're helping each other if someone has to leave or is leaving the small town because to save their lives or to save their children. And the people who are staying, they're taking care of everything, not only their own flats, their own pets. They're taking care of the neighbors' pets and the neighbors' flats, and trying to keep everything as good as possible, because it's so important that the society is working and things are not collapsing. Because if things start to collapse, the feeling, everyone will panic. So it's so important to try to maintain the everyday life, go to work if it's possible, do what you can, and to try to preserve the houses, to put the windows, when they are broken, put new windows in, or some wooden to protect the windows. And that's everyone's helping to do that together. And I think Swedes are not prepared to work so tight together and to listen to each other, because to help each other, you have to listen to each other. And people tend to think that they're in Sweden that they have to do everything by themselves. It's very hard for Sweden to ask for help. We should learn that.
Thank you. And Mike, you having worked in Ukraine and connecting both the mind and the body, what's your reflection from what you hear Prince and Elin say?
Yeah, I think it's important that when we think about mental health, we often think it's just in the mind, but this is a physiological aspect to this, and very much our nervous system is the foundation of our mental health. And so it's very important to talk about the regulation of it and the dysregulation of it. And so if you have a dysregulated nervous system, that is not a strong foundation for mental health. And so then in the societal context, we're all co-regulating off of each other. So if you're under a lot of stress, but you're isolated, now that can lead to very severe mental health outcomes, right? And so one of the things that's really struck me, and just picking up on what Prince and Ellen were saying, is when you're in Ukraine, you don't feel isolated. You feel a part of this overall organism, this overall group, and everyone is co-regulating off each other. So actually, when I'm in Ukraine, I feel that my mental health is better than when I'm in the United States. A lot better. I feel a part of this collective, and everyone is in it together. They're on the same frequency or wavelength, in it together as a community. And I think that that is very reinforcing for everyone in it. Whereas in the United States, everyone is, they're just their little autonomous, independent thing, trying to figure it out, bouncing off of each other. And then you don't get any of that co-regulation from it. And so a lot of the work we do is to help bring people into regulation. But as a part of that, you need to have your community that you're a part of. And I look at some of our societies, and I've spent some time in Sweden, and this isolation, this independence, Swedes are very independent, extremely. That can also be very fragile because the independent people can break, whereas when you have a collective together, you can be strong. And I think that has been a large part of Ukraine's success thus far, is binding together. And not just as the army with the morale, but also with the civilians. And when I'm there, you know, life is normal. And I ask people in Ukraine, I'm like, why is life so normal? And they say, well, we have an army. It's their job to protect us. And our job is to live a normal life. And if we don't live a normal life, we're not respecting the work of our army. And it's very powerful to be there.
Thank you. And part of this sort of social cohesion and the strength of a society is not only sort of the government, it's also other parts of society like corporations like you represent, but also civil society that have come up very strong in Ukraine during the war. And Kateryna, you represent Repower, a civil society organization. What's your experience on the role of civil society during the war?
Yes, thank you so much for this question, because I think it's something that's important to stress, that Ukraine faced with a major crisis, war, unbelievable, huge impact caused for everyone. And if we talk about war, it's not anymore just a job of some group of military. It's the job for every single citizen of Ukraine. And when it comes to mental health, we cannot wait until government or any authorities would do something with that, because authorities now are busy by trying to survive, and everyone has to make very clear steps and do what they can. And in our case, me working previously before the full-scale invasion with events and bringing people together, we learn a lot that only together, and we say in Ukraine, people heal with people and by being together. And when it comes to mental health in Ukraine, it's now extremely crucial, because society is now extremely on the scene, I would say, ice. And resilience, it's not something that you build when the crimes happen. It's something that has to be prepared way before. But even during these hard circumstances, you can do clear steps to make sure that you're okay. And you should not wait until the war is over, until the better times comes. You have to act right now. And Repower was created as a response to this huge need. And something, I would say, extremely novel that happening in Ukrainian society, that we have this tight civil-mil cooperation, and military without civilians can't survive, because you know perhaps very well that lots of volunteers, organizations are helping now civilians, helping now military, and this stigma of military, something that should be, you know, independent, separately operating, is not the case anymore, and the whole society has to work together. And now, only according to the official statistic of WHO, there are 41% of Ukrainians facing with mental health disorders. Just in numbers, it's 16 million. It's way more than the whole population of Sweden. And having that big issue in a society, you can't just leave it unaddressed. And there are many organizations helping out and trying to do what is possible. And in our case, we focusing on the ones who are at the front line and performing the most difficult job by making sure that our defenders are safe, life-saving work. But unfortunately, medics and doctors are the ones who see only the result and what Ukraine is paying for this work. And just saying that mental health, it's not a luxury anymore. It's not a cliche. It's not niche. I'm talking about the PTSD, which is even before the full-scale invasion in 2022, we have the statistic that it was more than 27% of people exposed to PTSD, and more than half has now, according to the statistic, the ability to develop PTSD. So that's not just loud and nice word anymore. It is a clear issue. And talking about Swedish society now seeing what way it is developing, we clearly can understand that we should start building this capacity within us. We should start to talk about this, make the institution of mental health and try to take away stigma from this and make sure that people know that if I am addressing my question, I'm not weak. I'm actually the strong one because I have this strongness to talk about it, address it, and to make sure that I'm okay, that my family can rely on me, my neighborhood can rely on me, my country can rely on me.
Thank you. And Prince, we have pictures here in the background from some of Repower's activities in Gotland and other places of Sweden and Denmark.
Yeah.
In Stockholm here. You were part of one of these trips. What were your experience of healing together, as Kateryna said?
But, I would just quickly add that, as you just said, absolutely right. In 2022, we didn't have a strongest army in Europe. We didn't have best equipment. We didn't have tank. We didn't have Abrams. We didn't have HIMARS. We didn't have F-16 back then. We were like really poorly equipped army. But we were a society that chose to fight. We had something bigger than just equipment and something that Russia will never have. We had a fair will to fight, will to protect what we love, who we love, and who we are. And that's the only reason we survived in 2022. But unfortunately, when the war going for quite some time, as it's now, the will is not enough. At some point, you reach a certain point where your body is that physically exhausted, that it start affect your mental health, your morale, and then you're just not capable to do your work anymore. And like you can have the best equipment in the world, but if you don't have people who are willing to sit in that tank, or you have thousands of drones, but if you don't have a drone operator who are willing to risk his life and sit close to the front line and operate this drone, it's just useless toys. You need people. You need people to fight. You need people to protect. And when you reach this point, when you're that exhausted, but like you are mentally not okay, you don't understand that you are not okay, then you need people like Katya and organizations like Repower who will just say you, okay, just relax, breathe in, breathe out. You're doing a great job, but you deserve rest. World will not stop. War will not be lost if you just have a week of rest. And it's really weird to hear when you're just in this stage for 3 years straight, when you're just like running, more work. And then, yeah, and then these people tell you, stop. And at first you feel a bit lost, because you just don't know what to do, because you used to monitor your working phone every few seconds, because you know that you're a medic, you can receive a call, and then they tell you that you can just leave your phone at home and enjoy this beautiful nature of Sweden, of Gotland. And at first it feels scary, I would say, because you feel so out of place. Like quietness, it's something that you eventually find out very heavy, because you use the sounds of drones and explosions, and then there's just a sound the Baltic Sea and seagulls, and it feels scary and wrong. But after a few days, after after this important things that we have on Repower, like unity, because you surrounded by 100 other medics who have similar traumas than you have, and you have a psychologist who's there not to teach you or like heal you. They there just to kind of control the flow of conversations that you have with other medics, and then you start feeling that you are not alone in this, that people around you, they have similar traumas, they have similar experience, and people in Sweden, they also help you, because when we were walking in like Visby on the streets, I remember people were seeing Ukrainian flags and they would just like come to us and they would hug us, which is super uncommon for Swedes. And it's like,
We know that Ukrainians love it, so they can hug Ukrainians.
Yeah, like
let's start with that. Then
probably that's some kind of sacrifice for them, and you understand it, that they choose to feel uncomfortable to make you feel comfortable. So that's also one thing that help you. You can see that a stranger from a foreign country, foreign culture and background, maybe not fully understand you, but they really trying to understand you. They like you are sitting here because you also trying to understand us, and that's feeling of unity, that not only in Ukraine we have unity, but also Ukraine is not isolated. That people in the West trying to understand us, want to understand us. That's helping the most in Repower and project like Repower, I would say.
Thank you. Elin, do you recognize this, the difference in sounds between Ukraine and Sweden?
Yes, yes, of course I do. And people often ask me if it's not hard to return to Sweden after Ukraine, but I don't know, maybe it's the same like Mike said, that I also feel my mental health is better in Ukraine, because I also meet all these fantastic people that, and everyone is doing their job, and everyone has a task to survive, and to even, it doesn't matter what you're doing as a civilian, if you're a dancer, a singer, a constructor, it doesn't matter, but you take your skills and you do something in the society, and that makes you feel important, and it makes you feel that you have to continue to fight. And people give me the same feeling when I'm in Ukraine, that I'm there because I'm a journalist, and I'm also doing what I can do. I'm also working. So it helps a lot. But I was thinking about what you said. I also meet a lot of soldiers, and I went together with the mobile psychologist team to the front line, and they were working with mental health and with panic attacks. And I was thinking about how important it is just not to only to learn how to deal with their own traumas and panic, but you have to help each other. And I was watching how they were training to help when a friend gets a panic attack. Because if you're out in the front line and someone is getting a panic attack, it's a question of life and death. If someone is just losing it and standing, can't move, can't run, or starting to shoot around, this person can kill other people, or it will be danger for everyone. And that's the same in the society, that everyone should learn how to do this. It's not a question of only people being traumatized or being at the front line, or it's about for everyone.
Do you think that Sweden and Swedes could try to do that already now, not necessitating a war to care for other people, and learning about sort of first aid response to mental health and so on?
Yeah, we should really do that, but I don't know how to implement it so people would understand how to do it, because it's hard when you have to feel this urgency, I think. And Ukraine has been feeling this urgency for a long time. The war didn't start 2022, it started a long time ago. It started when I was at Euromaidan, and I saw the people. I wasn't surprised that Ukraine didn't fall the first days in the war, because I've been to Euromaidan and I saw the resilience there. I saw how well people were organizing themselves, because they have been feeling this urgency for a long time. And I don't think we in Sweden, we do understand that we have a safety situation that is different today, but we don't feel the urgency.
What do you think, Mike? Can that sense of urgency be created without being invaded?
Yeah, and maybe it's worth just mentioning, like with PTSD and burnout, what a problem this is, right? If you have PTSD, you go from being someone that's contributing to someone that's a burden on society. You go from being an active soldier or medic that's doing a lot of good and being a part of it to now being taking a lot of resources. And so not only are you missing from the fight or the battle or society, but now you're putting a burden on society. And a little bit of the science around PTSD is that if you're in a high stress state and then something traumatic happens, your chances of developing PTSD are very high. If you're in a low stress state, if you're well regulated, if you're in a regulated society, something traumatic happens, the chances of developing PTSD are much, much lower. If you experience something traumatic, you're left in this heightened state. And if you can downregulate someone shortly thereafter, in the first 3 months, then the chances of PTSD drop by 80%. These are studies they've done out of Israel around it. So there are things that you can do about it. And so if you take a society that's already in a stress state and then something traumatic happens to it, you're going to have a lot of mental health issues. And just a little story I want to give just to bring this home. I was in Ukraine in 2022 working with refugees that were fleeing their homes. This is largely women and children. They're leaving behind their husbands and their sons. They've just traveled across Ukraine for 5 days. They're all at the border there with Poland. They're standing in the rain. By the way, not a baby crying, no one complaining. They've been standing in line outdoors in the freezing cold for 6 hours. It's just, I was just struck with how strong these people were. And then I won't talk much about what we do, but we have a system that just immediately lowers your stress level very quickly. In 10 minutes, it can just take away your stress. And so there's kind of a floor to it. So you go down to basically 0. But what I can see is I can see how stressed someone is before by the amount of relief they get. So I was in a refugee center, and we're just putting people through, and they're all, oh, wow, I needed that. And I would say their stress levels were going kind of from here to here. Okay? Then I immediately flew to Vancouver to attend the TED conference. We're all familiar with TED speakers. So these are kind of our thought leaders from around the world. And I'm putting them through Shiftwave. And so I get to see how much their stress levels drop. And all of them were just like, oh my God, I needed that so much. It was like their stress was up here, down to here. And it was so in my face, like, wow, you are our thought leaders, you're people that are supposed to be kind of, that we all look up to in society. And you are so much more stressed out than someone that's just lost their home and their family leaving in a war zone. And it just made me realize that these individuals are so isolated, they feel by themselves, the pressure to succeed is so high, the burdens, and they don't have any community around them for that. And it made me realize, like, wow, we're in a very fragile society here. Like, if something bad were to happen here, these people wouldn't be able to handle it because their stress level's here. Now something traumatic happens, they're all going to go into a very either burnout or PTSD. And so I think there's huge opportunities in the West, in the United States and Sweden, to start to address this. And as Kateryna, there's the stigma around mental health. And so a lot of our work is we actually focus on professional athletes and entertainers and also special forces in the US military. But in pro sports now, mental health is becoming okay to talk about. And it's great. And they're all talking about it. They're talking about their anxieties. And so we're helping them because now kids look up to them in society. Other people look up to them. And it's really saying it's okay to have mental health struggles. And then it's okay to use a device that'll help you regulate. And it's not just about preventing mental health, but it's about performing better and being a better contributor to society. So we use them as a way to destigmatize mental health and really change the conversation to be about mental performance, physical performance, and contributing to society.
Thank you. And Kateryna, living in Ukraine and being both in a sort of a stressful situation and also having a stressful work, what's your reflection on what you've heard so far? Can you lower your stress level sometimes, or how do you do?
Well, yeah, regarding the stress level, I think lowering this the simple methods actually helps to lower that. And when we talk about maintaining that, it's not something hard in terms of the reaching this. It's just moment when you realize that you need take your time, that you need to be for 5 minutes by yourself, breathe in and breathe out. And these things are very simple, but they helps a lot. And just want to reflect on the readiness. Maybe I have very, very strong belief in Sweden because I love this country so much. But I think if people now will start just to learn a little bit more about trauma-sensitive approach, how to be more compassion, what should be said and what should not be said, this is very important. And now, for example, there are many projects, and one of this is Say It project. They do the video about how to talk for Ukrainians now. But they do the video, for example, how to talk to someone who is under the stress, traumatized, or went through some traumas, and how to support. And I think these videos and this kind of educational programs has to be in Sweden as well. And if society will work as one organism, organizations, government, businesses within their companies, for example. Jonas, you shared with me that Almedalen time for your team is also time when you can have like a team moment and being together. I think this is important, that if all the owners of their businesses will start taking care, at least with a group of their workers, then government, military, and other will start to take care of their bubbles. So then these bubbles will be connected, and this is how the society will be stronger and more resilient. So if you have your family, your neighbor, your flat, start just being kind and more attentive to them around. And this is how, drop by drop, we can change the whole society. And I do believe in that.
Thank you. We now have a few minutes for questions from the audience. If someone would like to ask a question for the panel. Yes, there. Oh, sorry, we should have told the people managing the cameras.
Hey, Katya. Dear guests, I'm representing HUG, Help Ukraine Gothenburg, and on behalf of my team, I want to thank you for your immense work, for your help which you provide medical combats going forward and back, and tell that our doors are open for you in case you're in Gothenburg. Please welcome. We are also dealing with mental health support, so separate thank you for raising this important issue. We are dealing in 2022 with mental health support of displaced Ukrainians. So my professional question is, have you seen any differences, any shifts in mental health support needed dating back in 2024, because it's almost 4-year time, and now 2025, and what focuses should be made, what changes should be made in this, according to your opinion?
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you so much for this question. So in the beginning, of course, society were acting like adrenaline. Sorry.
No, it's just the next question.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
Just noticing that.
And answering your question, that in the beginning we know that stress comes, we have adrenaline, we have these resources inside us that help us to move forward, to perform, and we don't really think about what costs and what we're paying for that. But after a couple years, this fatigue, this, of course, propaganda and everything that strikes into us, and this news and this kind of movements inside the country that wants to make sure that people just give up. Of course, it's a big burden, but I think that now people start from racing the short race, they start understanding that this is a marathon and we need to use another type of approach and save more energy, be more compassionate, be more attentive. And I think now we reached the level when, for example, you are in the morning in Kiev and going and ordering your coffee in coffee shop and you see barista extremely exhausted and not really like following your order. You're not getting angry, you're not getting frustrated. You just have the same level of understanding that everyone is really tired. And if you have this understanding, then you can approach and help out and be more resilient in that, by knowing that. But if you're talking about the professional support now, from beginning and now, more on 32% people start reaching psychologists, psychiatrists, and this is a positive tendency. But for that, you need to do lots of educational work to take away stigma. But I see the positive dynamics in that, I mean, in approaching the professional help. But of course, people are getting more and more tired, and we should start doing that now if we're talking about Sweden, to start approaching these issues so you're more prepared when something happens.
Thank you. We have time for 2 brief questions, one there and one there afterwards.
Hi, thank you very much for all your testimonies. I'm with the Center for Health Crisis at Karolinska Institute. It would be very helpful to understand what type of education or training to provide both medical and nursing and physiotherapist students, but also already existing healthcare personnel. What I guess mainly the question for you, like what would you have wanted to know before? Now I know you weren't intending to be a medic, but with your experience, what would you have wanted to learn before and while you still could?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I would say like a protocols of psychological health, like first psychological aid, because I personally start learning it only after I had like a patient who had a severe panic attack, and I didn't know truly how to react to that, because we didn't when the war started, we received the basic protocol like TCC, March, everything, but I think that we need on the West even to change the TCC protocol and add to March psychological help and first psychological response aid as well. Like, yeah, we have protocols like I cover, but like I learned about this protocol on a Repower project here in Sweden. Like that's a lot of things and a lot of work we need to do, and include the first mental aid to a basic first aid, because usually when a person loses their limb or they are bleeding, they of course could be in really the panicking stage, and most Western protocols, they just say, oh, just sedate him. But like in Ukraine, sometimes you are not allowed to sedate the patient, because that will affect how you can monitor him and how you can like continue his like physical treatment. So you need to know the ways to make him calm and feel safer without just giving him medication. So that's a very bad approach, like give him medication. We need to teach medics and people who will be the first response, like police, like DSNS, firefighters. All these people should know first mental aid as well.
Thank you. And last question.
Thank you. I'm with an outpatient psychiatric facility in Sweden, and I'm an ICU nurse, so I've worked with some of the same group of patients. My question is, would you care to go into the specifics a little bit in terms of the first aid towards PTSD and the treatment, the specifics of what we can do as healthcare staff, please? And I'm directing the question basically to, I think, Dr. Mike, was it? And you, the Ukrainian.
And we have 2 minutes, so
I'll be quick then. So we do a lot of this in Ukraine and also in the United States. So we're in locations everywhere from National Rehabilitation Hospital, where we're actually rehabilitating active duty soldiers who are no longer fit for combat, bringing them back up to psychological stability so they can rejoin the fight. We also work with blast wound amputees. So this is severe trauma combined with TBIs. So it's really the heart over case. And so they use our system as a part of a method to regulate the nervous system and also take away phantom limb pain. And so they put them into a program where they're using this system. And we can speak later about what it does, but it uses vibrations to regulate the whole nervous system. And so it's been highly effective there. We started by donating systems, so 25 systems to different locations, from the front lines, military hospitals, children's trauma camps. And now we're very excited that the Pinchuk Foundation in Ukraine has now purchased 15 systems to put at 15 locations like yours across Ukraine to help with the general population.
And I would add, like a person who giving the first aid to a patient, for us it should be a good combination between still medication like a ketamine, because there is scientific research which shows that ketamine help to lower the chances of PTSD development later. But also it should be a combination of smart choice of medication, but also try to stay human being, because protocols also sometimes teach us to treat patients like numbers, and especially when you have 100 patients per day, you of course eventually start treating them as numbers. But as a professional medic, you should try to stay a human being and just show basic human support to your patient, and then it's also helping them later when they remember like a sweet evacuation where medics were joking, taking good care of them. They don't feel that they were just a source for the war, and that they are real people and real people came to help them. So that's two things for me, like combination of smart education and medication and being a human with good empathy.
Thank you, and thank you, the panel. I would recommend all of you who are here in Gotland and Visby to visit the Repower photo exhibition down in the harbor if you haven't seen it yet, and hope you have a nice Wednesday with staying human. So thank you.